Good evening. It's Tuesday night. This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News and Disc Jockey News TV. And Tuesday night is a special night in the hearts of a lot of us. You know, we get the warm, fuzzy feeling. Sometimes that's tacos, but for most of us, it's Ben Stowe night. Good evening, Ben.
Boy, it is getting deep in here from all the snow melting. The water is rising. That's what I meant.
Yeah, I'm sure because, you know, again, it was snow last week. This week, beautiful. You've been able to take off the layers so we can see that lovely shirt of the week.
That's right, T-shirt of the week. You know, and this is the first week that I actually got to wear the T-shirt all day and not have to wear some other layers. It is beautiful up here in northern Minnesota. It was up in the 40s. Now I know for a lot of viewers that isn't beautiful, but hey, for us that's a 70 or 80 degree improvement over what it was about a month ago. So.
Oh, that was crazy. That's crazy, but yeah, that's what it is. So you were able to wear the T-shirt. You were sporting it proud all day. Let's take a look at that shirt of the week.
Well, in honor of Episode 7 starting shooting, if you don't know what Episode 7 is, just stop watching now.
Yeah, precisely. There's no hope for you. I'm sorry. Go home.
That's right.
Spoiler alert. I am your father. Nice.
Courtesy of my family. I've got a lot of great Star Wars stuff. My mother-in-law, I don't know where she finds this stuff, but she finds Star Wars stuff everywhere. I've got a fantastic collection, and the nieces and nephews and even my own kids just, I mean, they love to hate me at Christmas time because I'm getting as many toys as they are. You know, if you get popular, I get right down there and we can get right into it. So yeah.
Yeah, and if you've got a mother-in-law who likes Star Wars, you're doing something right.
I don't think she even knows what Star Wars is. I love her, but you know, I mean, she finds this stuff. I don't know where, but I have just the most amazing collection of Star Wars tickets. You know, and so many of my friends out there in the industry, customers, they send me Star Wars things. I got a Star Wars calendar for Christmas, a Darth Vader and Son calendar, which I took home and have on display at home, so we know what day it is. You know, I got a Darth Vader. You can put on a mixing board, so you have a Darth Vader and some Darth Vader, bobbleheads and lots of. So I love that stuff. You know, I just think that's fantastic.
Great stuff.
A clock. I got a Star Wars clock. Lots of very cool stuff.
Nice. Cool stuff. And your fans out there, keep you into it. I've seen some pictures they're sharing with you, and there's some really creative people out there.
You know, I think that's just remarkable when, you know, people take the time out of their day to tag me in a Star Wars picture or to send me something funny or you know, I mean, again, to take the time to go get something and mail it to you. It's really humbling. You just kind of say, wow, I mean, this person took time to think of me today. That's really pretty remarkable.
That is pretty cool.
It means a lot. I really do enjoy it. So.
Yep, neat stuff. So last week we talked about crossovers, ins and outs and ups and downs, literally, of the crossover. That got us a lot of.
I see what you did there.
I see what you did there. And we had some people, we had some comments, we had some messages sent. Oh, by the way, if you do have a question, we'll just get this in right away as our first time. If you have a question for Ben that you'd like us to cover on a Tuesday night, you go to Twitter and you do the hashtag NLFXBen, or you do the @ symbol. How do you do that with your, anyway, the @ symbol, NLFXBen, and we can put that in an upcoming show. Had some questions. They were talking about the Cross Raiders a little bit, but they had some questions about speakers. And they were asking some questions about, specifically Ben had mentioned in our video last week about some of the frequencies causing damage. And I thought, what a great topic for this week. Let's just go through speakers and kind of talk about, you know, all the little components and what happens and what frequency. Yeah. Ben, are you ready for us on this one?
Hit me with your best shot.
Nice. Well, let's start off with, a speaker. What does it all entail? I mean, what makes a speaker work?
It is pure magic.
Nice. Well, that was quick. Now,
nobody knows.
No one knows.
Stuff. Whirling through the air at 500 miles an hour, and nobody knows why.
This little ball.
Have you seen that video? It's great. That's why I'll never go viral. I'll never come up with something like that. If you haven't seen the video and you don't get the reference, somebody will probably post the link.
Yeah.
For those of us that fly, 100,000 miles a year, it was actually sent to me by a high school classmate who is a Delta flight attendant. It was hilarious. I did laugh. But anyway, speakers.
By the way, that video he's referring to was a stewardess, and it was a shutting your telephones off video, and yeah, eventually, why do we have to do that? Yeah, you got to check it out. The stewardess, I don't remember which one it was, but it was a great spoof.
It was good for a laugh, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
So,
speakers. Let's get back.
Speakers, on the other hand, we know exactly how they work and exactly why. We're going to go back to kindergarten physics for you real quick. And if we remember, if you have a magnet and it has a north pole and a south pole, and my finger's the imaginary magnet here, okay? And we take another, another magnet, and if it has a north pole here and a south pole here together, they attract. They want to go together.
Yep.
But if this is a north pole and this is a north pole, they want to repel. They don't want to go together.
Yeah.
Just try it for yourself at home if you forgot how that works, or just a good excuse to play with magnets. And then, of course, if you remember, we take a standard steel or iron nail and wrap a coil of wire around it, and put an electrical current through it, through a 9-volt battery. Do try this at home. Good to do, with your kids. We can create an electromagnet, and depending on the direction that the electricity is flowing, will determine the polarity of that magnet.
Okay.
And that's exactly how loudspeakers work. They have a coil of wire that makes an electromagnet, and they have a permanent magnet. And I have a really cool visual here, courtesy of my friends at Eminence Loudspeaker Corporation. They made this for me, and I'm very grateful.
Oh, wow.
This is has some pieces cut away, so we can see how this thing works inside, and it's actually a working display. Let's see if we can make the camera pan down here, and we'll go through the nuts and bolts, quite literally, of this loudspeaker, and we'll talk about how it works. So here we can see there's that coil I was telling you about, and it is just a coil of copper wire. That's what we call the voice coil.
Ben, what gauge? I mean, we hear wires talk about gauge. I mean, that looks like a smaller gauge than almost anything I've seen before when it comes to wiring, house or even speakers in a car. When you're running wires, it must be a very fine gauge.
It's tiny. Yeah, I'm not sure what gauge it is. I'm gonna guess something in the 30s. But honestly, you go. There's something I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, that's just so a lot of us are used to household wiring is 14 gauge is kind of a common.
12.
12 is also a common, but that's
not much in your house should be 14 at this point. Most of your household wiring should be 12. And anyway, that's another topic.
Hey, another topic, but yeah, okay. So that's a very, very, very fine wire that you're looking at there.
Yeah, it's very small, and of course the number of coils, the number of wraps, and the tighter the wraps, the better the magnet it's going to make, the better the magnetic field it's going to make. And then here we have a top plate and a bottom plate, and between that we have a permanent magnet.
Okay.
So again, depending on whether this magnet is the same pole or the opposing pole to the magnetic field set up here, it's going to want to attract or repel. And that's what's going to cause this cone to move.
Okay.
In fact, I've got this hooked up to a tone generator here, and I think, let's see if this shows up on the video.
Oh yeah, we got some movement.
Yep. We're at about 9 hertz right now, about 10 give or take, and we'll notice that as I increase, at some point you're not going to be able to see this due to the way video works, but I'm going to increase the frequency.
There, we lost it right there. Where are you at now, Ben? Oh, you're riding an airplane.
Yeah, stewardess.
Yeah.
I'm right about 100 hertz right now.
Okay. Which is where
our crossover point was.
Yep, our crossover point for last week was, yeah.
Yep, that's why I picked that, just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other, components of the loudspeaker, we have the spider right in here. That's what holds that voice coil in the center of the gap. The tolerance is very small. We don't want that voice coil to rub. It'll wear and fail. And then we've got our cone, our surround, and then a dust cap. And the dust cap is pretty cleverly named. It's what it does. It keeps dust out of the voice coil in the gap. Debris obviously would be a bad thing.
Sure.
What we talked about primarily with crossovers was failure due to frequency. And again, as we saw, as the frequency changes, the way the loudspeaker moves changes, and we want to have our loudspeakers reproducing a certain set of frequencies where they're most efficient, most effective. You know, and depending on the design of the loudspeaker, and we'll look at some high frequency drivers here in a second, this is something you would find typically in the lower end of a cabinet. You know, this is something that we're going to see our lower frequencies, our mid bass come off of.
Now this is an actual, this is a subwoofer. So when does that technology change then, when it goes from, you know, more of a cone shape like this to more of a high frequency driver?
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
You know, if this were a subwoofer, it would be built fundamentally the same. Woofers and subwoofers are largely built the same in terms of the cone structure and that sort of thing. There's some you know, design characteristics that are taken into careful consideration by loudspeaker engineers with regards to, you know, the properties, the types of glues, because this doesn't move straight up and down. It actually flexes a little bit as it moves. I was privileged enough to see some laser mapping of a loudspeaker cone in movement, and it's phenomenal. It's amazing where they, you know, they're detecting little distortions and making adjustments accordingly. Anyway, the one of the other fundamentally really important parts of this loudspeaker, on the bottom here we see a vent.
Okay.
And as the cone moves up and down, it pulls air in and out of that coil gap down there, and that's helps to keep it cool, because heat is really the #1 reason loudspeakers fail. Frequency is important, you know, not just for the quality of the sound, but, you know, again, to protect our loudspeakers. But the #1 cause of loudspeaker failure is heat. So
now, what parts of that, as we were looking at that model, what is damaged by heat?
Well, the coil. You know, let's stick to. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm making you bounce back and forth like a loudspeaker. Yeah. Let's go to high frequency drivers first.
Okay, and then we'll talk about problems. Okay.
Yeah, and then
sounds
we'll talk
great.
about you know, how movement becomes a problem. This one already has a problem. It shouldn't have holes in it, but we'll get to that in a second.
Now, what am I looking at right there?
This is called a diaphragm for a high frequency driver.
Okay.
What we see here, if you can see at the bottom, there's a coil right there.
Oh wow, that's just a fraction of what we saw in the other.
Very small, and this sits into a permanent magnet structure where my hand is right now. That's where the permanent magnet would be. I've taken it out of the permanent magnet.
Okay.
And then here's our electrical terminals, positive, negative, and that causes this to move just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit and produce these really high frequency sounds. And it goes through a horn, and that helps to amplify the high frequency sounds and allows it to keep up with a woofer like we just looked at. The problem is when this is forced to move too much. If this is given sounds that are below the frequency it's designed to reproduce, it can move more than it's supposed to. And that's exactly what happened to this one. It was given a low frequency sound with some juice to it, and it slammed into the phase plug. Just shattered it. And it's really only about the thickness of tinfoil, and it's structurally sound while it's intact as a dome, but it's done for now. Here's a worse one right here.
Wow. Yeah,
you can see that's seen better days.
And you said, so it literally hit that you called it a phase plug?
Phase plug, yeah. It's
is it like a hard surface then it hit and cracked that, or?
Yeah, it's a very hard surface. It's you know, opposite of the magnet, we have the rest of this, you know, high frequency driver assembly that again helps us to amplify the sound coming off that small and thin diaphragm. And the phase plug helps to guide the wavelengths out into the horn and helps prevent problems from occurring right next to the driver.
Okay.
And, you know, again, those wavelengths are very small. We have to think about what's happening with those very small wavelengths, because it happens in a very close distance. So and we'll skip all the physics, but so that's a problem that can be caused by movement. Going back to our woofer, problems we can have that would be associated with movement here are that if this thing moves too much, and it'll move a pretty good distance. Let's do a little demo here. A little science fair. I'm just going to take a 9-volt battery.
Oh yeah, you're making a jump there.
Okay.
Okay, wait a second now, Ben. That time it went down. Before, when you put that signal.
Yep. Now I'm making it go up.
Oh.
Because I'm changing the polarity of the magnet.
Or the battery.
Changing the polarity of the battery. I'm sending a straight DC signal. So That's about the most that thing is designed to go up. And any more is going to create problems. You know, we have only a certain amount of tolerance here with these various pieces we talked about, the spider and the surround. So lots of things can go wrong when we have what we call over excursion. You know, we can cause the cone to tear. We can cause it to come loose from its surround. We can blow the dust cap off. We can cause it to tear loose from the spider. I mean, just there's a never-ending list. We can cause it to jump out of the gap. Any of those things is pretty much the end of the loudspeaker at that point.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Lots of different things. I guess a guy doesn't even think about all the potential problems there could be for that.
Well, yeah, and those things again are largely caused by improper frequencies or too much power. But the number one cause of failures, like we talked about, is heat. We saw earlier how nice and shiny that copper voice coil was.
Oh yeah.
Let's take a look at one that's been burnt here.
Okay, so now where would the copper have been on that one?
Well, it's still there. It's very dark.
That is it? Oh my gosh.
Yep, it's actually, we see the wire has even failed here. So this thing is shot. You know, one man's garbage is another man's treasure. I have a big collection of corpses. You know.
Oh my! And that was just from the heat buildup over time. You know, and just cooked it down.
Yep, exactly.
Wow.
Again, it just can't dissipate heat fast enough. Music and spoken word and those sorts of things has a crest factor where the signal is up and down, and so the loudspeaker is not always operating at its peak output. It's resting quite a lot, you might say. That's one of the reasons that amplifiers can have wattage ratings greater than the wattage from the wall can supply, because they're able to hit peaks using stored power and capacitors, and that's maybe something we can cover in a future show.
Sure.
And anyway, the loudspeaker can absorb those peaks without any issue. It's when it has so much power over an extended period of time, and it just and the dynamic range of the signal is gone, maybe like a tornado siren, or just a constant sine wave. It's going to sooner or later going to overheat. Modern, like electronic, dance music, techno, house. I'm sure I'm getting all the terminology wrong, but just go with it.
Yep.
Those are really, really hard signals on loudspeakers. They're very, very hard on them. And fortunately, the loudspeaker manufacturers know that, and they understand the kind of the changing face of music. And their loudspeakers today are built so much better than loudspeakers 20 years ago. In my opinion, it's amazing what loudspeaker engineers have done in the last 20 years, even in the last 10. So.
Wow. So just so I can kind of clarify this, when we're talking heat, the idea of having that back and forth is positive. So a bass guitar, basically a bass player who's hitting a super, super low note and just hitting it and holding it could potentially cause more heat in a speaker than a bass drum that's going boom, boom, boom. Would that be, am I on the right trail with that?
Yeah, I would say you absolutely are.
Okay.
And if we think about how those signals are created, the bass drum has a head that, vibrates, and it's more of a pulse, like you said, versus a bass guitar is a string that's vibrating. And what's happening is that acoustic energy of the string vibrating is turned into an electrical signal, sent through our signal processing, and then reproduced in the acoustic realm. But that speaker has to keep vibrating to keep producing that signal.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So now getting back to the cone now, when a person's out in the field and such, and I've had this happen to me a couple of times, and it was not a good thing, but I've had people go through and literally, kids have poked holes in the cone on my subwoofer. Now, when that has happened, is that speaker done for the night, or can I use it to finish the gig? Is it usable? Is it fixable? I guess let's start with, okay, it happened at a show. Is it dead?
Well, I think, first of all, that kid's ability to request songs would be done for the night, that's for sure.
You would hope so.
Don't poke holes in the DJ's speakers.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's done for the night it's certainly done, forever at some point. But if you don't have a backup and you have to limp through the show, it's probably a judgment call. If you can hear audible distortion from the paper rubbing or air whistling through the cone, then it might be done.
Yeah.
Better off without it. If you feel like you listen to it and you say, well, I can limp by, and then you can. There's all sorts of things that are done, and I'm the kind of guy that when I got new speakers, I had to take them home and take them apart right away. That's just me, Not advocating that, by the way, but
yeah.
I wanted to know what was going on, and always been sort of a curious person. I might decide, well, I need my high frequency drivers for the coverage, but I can limp by with one mid driver, and maybe I would disconnect the driver that has a hole in it inside the cabinet, but leave my high frequency running, and it's a judgment call.
Right.
But you definitely should replace it. I mean, to use it again the following week would be much harder for me to justify.
Sure. Now, is that something?
Yeah, we owe it to our clients. So.
Yeah, for sure. You want to make sure you're in good shape when you start, because unfortunately things happen. So we've got the woofer, and it's needing help. Is that can something be done to fix that, or is that something basically that it's garbage and now I need to get a new one?
Well, yes, to both.
And it's magical.
I was trying to think of anything to say besides it depends, but it's just...
It fits so well, thanks.
You can recone speakers, or you can have them reconed.
Okay.
That's not something I think that's for the faint of heart, because you need to make sure that's aligned really well in the gap. We're dealing with some fairly precise things that are going on there, and should be done by an experienced person. There are always, your do-it-yourselfer types out there, and I admire them. Like I said, I'm the guy who wants to take everything apart just to see if I can put it back together. And so I'm not begrudging anybody who wants to do it themselves, but just saying there's a degree of caution that needs to be taken here.
Oh, for sure.
On the other hand, buying a replacement woofer assembly and putting that in your speaker box, that's something anybody can do, really. I mean, if you're ambulatory at all, and you can use a screwdriver, you can take the grill off and take the assembly out. The wires, they almost always connect with just some type of a friction connection, like this here. The battery stuck to the there, we see our friction connection here.
Yeah.
Or this type here where it's a spring.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's probably something you can do with very little heartache and headache. Maybe even at the gig, if it were, desperation. I don't know. Like I said, I guess it would have to be a pretty extreme example for me to try to replace a woofer at a gig. But and I certainly would try to do it out of the sight of guests.
Yeah, I think most of us, Ben, are not that excited to grab a screwdriver as you are.
Yeah,
just saying. I'm just saying. Most of us would be like
all black that goes running across the stage when something happens, and comes swooping in the dark, Anyway, so
he's got his own little Batman theme song as he comes flying. No. Repairman. Oh, cool stuff. Well, Ben, thank you very much. We got a great insight to the ins and outs of speakers. Good stuff.
And the ups and downs.
And the ups and downs and backs and forths. It's good stuff. So if you have any questions for Ben, let me put this back up one more time. Oh, I can't do that one. I got to do this one. There we go. If you have some questions for Ben, go to Twitter. You can use the @ NLFXBen and send him a question, or you can do the hashtag and NLFXBen, or you can pop out to the video in the comments below. We've got some people doing comments on YouTube, some people doing Twitter, some people, I think there were some smoke signals. One was written on toilet paper, and it's all beautiful.
Well, for those of us, for those of you in our generation, the hashtag is the £, by the way. So I seriously overheard some people in my daughter's age. Thankfully, my daughter's not one of them. That were asking why older phones had hashtags. The non-smartphones, like a StarTAC flip phone, saying, why did it have a hashtag when you couldn't see Twitter on it?
There's a question for next week. So, we didn't have any questions about, the sky being blue or water turning pink or any of that this week. So we could have talked about, why old phones had hashtags. That would have actually been a pretty good question.
I probably still have an old StarTAC around, or one of the old flip phones,
Yeah.
Maybe even a bag phone. Even what's a bag phone?
Wow, you don't throw anything away, do you? No, very good, Ben. We need to wrap it up here. We've got our show for tonight, but thank you once again for being here, and we will see you next Tuesday night.
Sounds good. Thanks, John.
This is John Young with the Disc Jockey News and Disc Jockey News TV. Good night.